Who sang Gin and Juice?
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg.
It was Snoop. Of course. Okay, duh. Okay. All right. I was trying to go Snoop or Tupac. I was thinking.
Oh.
That's DOB's territory. He's the rep guy.
Whatever.
Welcome everybody. Ashley's vacationing and over in God's country. Mark Twain Lake.
Oh, well, good for her.
So beautiful,
My daughter was
relaxing.
just there not long ago.
Yeah, it's a really nice. It's very short. There's not as much action as the Lake of the Ozarks, but it's a nice little getaway. And if you just got a boat and you just want to float around or whatever, it's a great place. So having grown up 7 miles.
When was the last time you were at the Lake of the Ozarks?
Oh, 5-6 years ago.
I was just down there last year, and sorry.
It's nuts.
So busy.
It has outgrown.
Yeah.
It has outgrown its infrastructure.
Is it like
very tough to get around?
nothing like the show?
No, it's not like Ozark.
No.
And I guess the 54 bridge at Jeff City is going to be under construction all summer and down to like one lane both ways.
Oh, good Lord.
Brutal. Transportation issues are always difficult and logistics, and we're dealing with some of that here in Quincy. As we found out, David went to the aeronautics meeting the other night, that was
a great segue too to go from the Jefferson City Bridge to transportation to the Quincy Airport. That was very skilled.
Not my first rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, what's the issue?
Well, which one do you want to go at first?
Well,
there appears to be several.
Let's go with the flight issue.
The flight issue is that the number of flights leaving the airport is not at a number that the Aeronautics Committee or the City Council is happy with. It's a little bit better. At one point, it was the Southern Airways Express was missing 25% of its flights. They cut that number down of the flights being offered, I think, to help strengthen their percentage. But I know, like last month, out of 144 flights, there were 8 missed flights, which for some people, I mean, if that's something that you're truly relying on to get from point A to point B, 8 out of 144, what's the batting average there, Bob?
It's not good.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, and it would not be, and it's going to be in single digits percentage, but that's still a number.
If it's your flight.
If it's your flight, it's the only, And
it's the only one you care about.
Yeah, and if you miss that flight because there was a mechanical problem or the pilot didn't show up or whatever, you're going to certainly think twice about using that service again. And I think that's what the city is really concerned about, is that those numbers were supposed to get better and haven't been.
But, they had so many issues with Cape Air.
Yes.
Then COVID hit. The airport has never rebounded from the COVID numbers.
Nope.
So Southern has come in to try to do this. And again, the industry as a whole has pilot issues. The industry as a whole is trying to adapt to this whole post-COVID world because I guess not as many people have been traveling. So you've got to learn how to handle that. I think the other issue is when you're promising a nonstop flight from Quincy to Chicago,
you might want to make sure it's nonstop.
You might not want to go to Burlington. You might just want to keep doing that.
Now,
and if there's an emergency, I get it.
Right.
But if there's not, you gotta deliver because.
And I think the city still is learning a little bit about that.
Right.
Because the new airport director, the interim airport director, brought it up at the meeting of the Aeronautics Committee last night. And was asked, how often has this happened? And he's like, I don't really know for sure. But I've seen tickets printed that say Quincy to Burlington to Chicago. And he's like, that shouldn't be happening. And so one of his directives last night was find out how often that's happening because that shouldn't be happening. The case that was made, I believe his name was Ty Zong.
Ty. What movie is that from?
I don't know.
What movie is that from, David?
I believe that would be from Caddyshack.
Correct.
Anyway, Ty Zong.
Judge Smales.
Judge Smales, yes, I know. He made the announcement that it was like a college basketball player who was trying to get from Chicago to Quincy, but the flight got diverted to Burlington, and then the flight the plane had issues in Burlington, and so this guy who was from Chicago trying to get to Quincy is stuck in Burlington, knows nobody in Burlington, and can't get to Quincy. So I know I talked to a couple of aldermen last night who basically said we're struggling right now to keep good faith in Southern Airways right now, and so I know they would like to have some discussions about how to make improvements, and one of the commissioners on the on the committee said that he had heard that local travel agents are telling people don't take the Quincy planes because you miss too many of them.
See,
just drive to St. Louis.
They had that problem with Cape Air, and that was one of the things when Southern came in and won its bid among all the others. It was like, look, we're going to work on this. And again, obviously, they're still having issues. I don't think the planes themselves are issues, because I know a lot of people, like when they went to turboprops or whatever, and not having jets was a big deal for some people. Having flown in single engine planes since I was 2 years old, I'm just used to them. I think they're fine.
Right.
I've only used the airport. I haven't used the airport since Cape Air. Just haven't had the opportunity. But I think that if anybody's going to use it, they've got to have, if you got the code share where your bags go seamlessly and all that other stuff, that's great. But you have to make the flights. And if offering fewer flights is the answer, then offer fewer flights.
Right.
I mean, I think that's going to be the.
Right now they're averaging about less than 3 passengers per flight.
Yeah. See.
So is it worth it altogether?
Well, when you talk about.
That's a great question. That's a fair question.
It's a federal subsidy that we get, but we have to get a certain amount of flights in order to get a higher federal subsidy.
10,000 flights get you $1 million.
Yeah, but you get paid. You get paid. Southern is paid by the feds just to be here in the first place, but you get an incentive of $1 million when you hit 10,000 flights a year. And again, they haven't hit 10,000 since
before COVID.
Pre-COVID. Now the city was also playing some games where the city was buying some tickets.
I'll let you handle that part.
Yeah, that was
What about
just so they'd hit the number.
The grant that was lost in the drawer?
That was the next thing.
That was the one that caught.
There's your segue right there. So.
Yeah, well, there were.
Was that a federal grant? Or no, that was a state grant, right?
I don't know which grant. There were 3 grants that were discussed. Most of them were discussed at the May meeting that I couldn't get to, but they were brought back up again last night, asking the airport director, "Have you taken care of all the problems that we've had?" And these grants, and he basically there was a $74,000 grant. I don't remember who that was from, but they received it for a skid loader, and they had to buy all this equipment for it, and apparently they didn't do anything with it, and they had to return it. And then there were 2 other grants. One was for $24,000, one was for $28,000 from the Illinois Department of Transportation. One of them, the committee seems to be 50-50 as to whether or not they're going to get it extended and be able to use it. The other one, it's kind of like, you better get going on this or you're going to lose this one too. And to be honest, most of the complaints were about the fact that the previous airport director, in their opinion, had not taken care of the proper paperwork. They were told this is being done, this is being handled, don't worry about it, and then they're finding out that it wasn't being handled.
Sounds like a mess.
What I do know is I don't know that, but the committee seems pretty happy with Ty in regard to being able to try to fix some of the problems there. But
what's it worth to us as a city, I guess?
To continue to have it?
Yeah, I mean, it's three people out in a flight. Like, I don't know.
But if you're wanting to come here to do business, and you need to, I'm a jet-setting businessman, and I need to zip in. What is it? Zip in, zip out. It's not like it's Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She didn't know what that line's from either. But you zip in, do your meetings, zip out.
But it doesn't sound like it's happening like that.
But it doesn't sound like it's happening very often. It would be. I think it would be fascinating to find out who uses it.
Mm-hmm.
And
who truly does use the airport because I could understand that if you're flying in from Chicago and I'm a local businessman, I want to make sure I get home, drive in or fly in, do my business, fly back. Mm-hmm. I can understand that.
But you've also got several of these companies now who just have their own planes. And that's how they get around it.
Yeah,
they just have their own plane, and hey, we'll just zip to wherever we need to zip to. And when you've got locations all across the country, and it's easier that way. So we're not saying close the door on the place. We're saying make it viable, make it work. Because I think again, to have the commercial, to have the commuter, the flights for passengers and stuff. It's a nice convenience, but again, it's not a convenience if it doesn't work. So I really hope that the folks,
they had 20 missed. They had 8 flights they missed in May. They had 20 missed flights in March.
Yeah,
that's man. I mean,
And again, that's the problem Cape Air was having
Our
before.
good friend Steve Eichner would say, "Well, you're still hitting 750. I mean, that's a great batting. Well, it's a great batting average.
Yeah.
It's a rotten flight percentage.
Yeah. So. Well, I hope that, again, I know that the folks at Southern, they're trying to address it. And, again, it's they've got a contract, but the city could, I'm sure the city could exercise if certain parameters aren't reached or whatever. The city could make another change, although that's a whole process in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And I remember the last time when Southern came in with a bunch of these other companies and sat in on some of those hearings and meetings, and they made their presentations. And if they just get a provider that can just, hey, here's your 2 flights to Chicago a day. Here's your 2 flights to St. Louis a day, or 3 flights 2 to 1, whatever. If you just make it so, hey, this is what we got.
We're gonna hit
the numbers. We're not gonna have a lot of numbers, but at least we're gonna hit these numbers. We're gonna hit this baseline. Again, you gotta get your blocking and tackling done before you can do the big stuff. So, but. I think that, and we were also talking earlier that Amtrak, those had a pretty good year.
Mayor Mike Trope said at last night's Aeronautics Committee meeting that the only problem was I didn't remember. He just said Amtrak's had 15,000 riders.
That sounds like since the first of the year, probably.
I would think that would be from the first of the year, but I don't know. So. He didn't say in the past year, in the past 6 months. He just said, hey, their numbers have almost returned to pre-COVID numbers.
Well, when the weather's nice, when the weather's fine, Amtrak's great. But when it's cold and the tracks freeze and all that, it's not good.
I remember sending my kids to Chicago one time on the train, and they got stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, the 2 years ago in December when we were talking earlier when I was up in Evanston. I ended up having to take the train instead of the Springfield line the Quincy to Chicago line was toast. I ended up going the train Quincy to Springfield, and then Don O'Brien had to come get me. So, yay.
Yay. Don O'Brien saved the day.
To the rescue. So, tell us a little bit of our guest before we bring her in.
I like how you said with big things you have to get your blocking and your tackling done, and that is what my guest is working on right now currently with the Riverfront Committee. She's working alongside of them, and she's a good friend of mine, and I wanted to invite her on.
And the fact is, I know she knows a little bit about blocking and tackling.
Yes, she does.
Yes,
she does.
That was...
Because another thing that I really want to talk about and discuss is who she is and where she came from.
But you're going to have to wait for me to get out of the way for her to be able to take this spot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So if you could just
move along.
Peace out. Be gone. And we'll be right back.
Send it to break so I can do that quietly.
To a break.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
A&B Properties is Quincy's largest apartment rental company with hundreds of units available. They offer short-term and long-term rentals with 1 up to 4 bedroom apartments. A&B Properties meets the needs of its tenants with care, compassion, and a quality of service that exceeds expectations. A&B Properties also has a convenient tenant app for you to do your payments or make repair requests. Give them a call today. A&B Properties, 217-919-8080, Quincy.
Let's go, 'cause is our jam. This is our jam.
I'll let you do the introducing.
I'm really bad at introducing, though. Why would you
As long
you
as
make
the
me...
word tomorrow's not involved, you're fine.
Exactly. Jeez. Thank you, Stephanie Cross, for being here, but she's known as Stephanie Koscielski to many.
Yeah.
Recently married. I got to attend the best wedding. It was awesome. And you got to marry one of the best men I know.
He is amazing and incredibly hilarious.
Yeah.
So.
I think I actually introduced them too, accidentally.
You did. We'd met several times. He actually attended 2 of my birthdays that he didn't remember. The first one he brought a date to. And then we met under the guidance of Brittany Bowl. And that's when we
At the
fell
bar.
in love.
Nice. That's awesome.
And speaking of love, we are drinking, I think you would call this like a love drink. I don't know. Are the French like...
It's a classic cocktail. That's all I know.
Okay.
It's an oldie.
It's an oldie, but it's a goodie. It's called a French 75. I've never heard of a French 75 as a bartender until I went out to eat with Stephanie one night. It was a great night. Like, I have a smile on my face just because it was a really good time. We went to a local establishment. I will not name the name. And we had a lovely dinner, but before dinner, we always like to have a couple cocktails. And she had ordered a French 75. We all then kind of poked fun at her because no one
Immediately made fun of me.
Yeah.
I said, what's a French 57? What's a, there were other numbers
Heinz
involved.
42.
I would say, being
There's-
French, I was thinking other numbers, but that's
I
okay.
mean,
There were
It
other
was-
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they all made fun of me, said I was being stuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bougie.
Yeah.
You're being bougie.
That's what good friends do, is make
That's
fun
right.
of you. Yeah.
But her bouginess led her to some sobriety because by the time we were on round 2, she still hadn't got her French 7900 or whatever. And normally we're the type of people that, like you wouldn't eat in front of. We always say I'd sooner die than start eating before everyone gets their
Of course.
their food. But with drinks in our group, that's different. So
Yeah, definitely. And our group is that first round drink is usually not a long one.
Yeah, sure.
The second one's the sipper. The first one is
So,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was round 2, and the waitress just comes over, and everybody was like, hey, did she? And the lady goes, yeah, I'm not opening a bottle of bubbles for you.
Wow.
I said, oh, okay. And this was a nice restaurant. I don't want people to think that I'm going to the corner tavern and thinking I'm getting this, all right? I grew up here. I grew up in corner taverns. That is not, I would
Yeah,
never make
no.
that move, but.
And this was a long time ago. I think
Yeah.
things have changed. I actually think the drink is on their menu right now. But
Good.
Yeah. So to French 75s, this is my first sip of one. I know it's probably not the greatest because I asked her, I said, how is it? She said it's a Brittany Bowl pour. So here we go.
That means heavy.
Taste Frenchy. I don't know. It's actually not bad.
Yeah.
There is just a hefty amount
Of gin. Sorry.
But
it's good gin.
Yeah.
Good gin purchased from the liquor booth.
Nice.
I
Shout
like
out.
I like cold drinks, so I would like this really on ice. But that's
Yeah.
okay. But you said that's not a thing.
It's not a thing. Everything is usually like ice cold when you put it in, but
Mm-hmm.
it's usually simple syrup or sugar cube, gin or sugar cube, lemon dissolves, gin, top with bubbles. Any
Okay.
kind of bubble.
So I'm
No,
not
it's very
supposed to have
good.
the floating lemon in there. Did I fail?
No, lemon's good too. You can put
Okay.
that on the top.
No, it's good.
Lovely.
There we
Lovely like you. Because, okay, so I had you here for this great, lovely reason. You are so good at being like a communication person for me, through everything. I know I've been very outspoken a little bit on the riverfront. And you and I have not seen eye to eye on things, obviously, because you're a part of it. Like, you're huge involved with it. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
I mean, I am a little bit now, more as a volunteer, but I worked on the original riverfront master plan, and I got to be involved in a lot of the research. I got to talk to almost all of the stakeholders. We put together a lot of meetings, so I have a lot of information about the project.
You're a
And
wealth of information.
I think that I love what I do. I also love research. I love learning new things, talking to new people, and I get passionate and excited about anything that I'm working on for a long period of time. Because if you're not excited about it, then you're really not doing a good job for your clients, right?
Right, yeah.
So if they've tasked you with something, you better own it and you better put your all into it. And so that's why I am supportive, because I really enjoy the project. And I learned a lot. So many people to talk to. Brittany and I have talked about this before. Just because I don't see eye to eye with someone, I don't have a problem with that.
Well, yeah, that's
Which is
what
why
this
we're really
country
good
should
friends.
all be
Yeah.
about, because that's part of our problem, is that we can't have any sort of discourse because of a disagreement that leads each side to hate each other. It's our country's biggest problem right now. So because I was involved in the riverfront in the beginning stages, and I'm a supporter of it. But I'm sort of like a supporter of riverfront light. You know, let's make it so we can put boats at the dock. Let's do that. Let's get out of the mosquito infested marina. Let's try to bring the boats and the action to the shoreline, and that's kind of where I'm at on it. And I would support any effort that leads to that. And if we want to do things down the road, great. But first, let's get the basics done first. And
The blocking and tackling.
Which
is what we're here to talk about. So we're like the riverfront, I guess. I don't want to say it like got shut down, because it's not shut down, but different government entities voted to not support it financially right now. It's still, I believe the county is still promising them $200,000 or something like that.
Sounds about right.
But the biggest endeavor is fundraising, is the route that they're planning on going right now. And I think that's what the community wants to hear, that their taxes are not being raised for a project. The fundraising, though, can you tell me a little bit about this? Because I know it's kind of under wraps. It's still in the works, but it's a big deal. It means that we're working towards it. We're blocking and tackling things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes blocking and tackling in this world. So I've worked in sort of design, construction, planning, architecture, engineering my entire career. And sometimes projects take a couple years, right? The best case scenario, it'll be a very quick turnaround.
Sure.
Sometimes projects take much, much longer. And actually, when I was thinking about this, I thought about the trail. That first plan for how a trail would be developed in the Quincy area, I think it was late 30s, but it's definitely in the 40s or 50s when that plan for a trail system was developed. Yep. It did not get started again until there was more push for it in the 90s, 98 or so, I think, when they got going. And then it was 2008 before construction, I think, started, or before it was open. So having a little bit of a time between having a master plan created and things happening is not surprising to me. And it's not surprising that sometimes people don't want to put their money in first because they want to see what is the major plan, what is going to happen. And I think you have to get your ducks in a row in a really responsible way if you're even going to try to take on a project of this scale that influences so many people and so many lives. You can't just, we put this group together and they're going to do this. Even if we got $40 million tomorrow, you'd want a more solid
Sustainable
plan behind
plan,
you.
because
Yes. The last thing I would ever want, too, is for something to get built and then we don't have the structure to support it as an organization. I think that's one of the things that I've witnessed in this community, and it's not because it's lack of trying in the community, it's that that's a job that someone has to own and do all of the time. They're like, why don't we have more concerts? We don't have like a organization that just exclusively runs major events, and the guys that are doing it are doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
This year, I love how many people are coming to town and to the Lincoln Park and all of the other park areas. I mean, what we've done is and people have built on is great, but you've got to lay a groundwork. And so that's what's been happening over the last couple of years. And now I'm volunteering. The teaser is a very small teaser. We are going to try to get a community event planned. We're hoping it's going to be this year. It could end up being early next year at a different point in time. But we have a pretty good idea of a plan. that it's going to involve a lot of people coming down to the riverfront, and it's stuff that we have never done in Quincy. It's not happening in Hannibal. It's ideas and something that's going to be very unique to us. It's not just our sort of the Q version of, you know, it's
Right.
a very unique event
Oh,
for
I like
us
that you say that too.
that gets everybody to come to town, and we want to engage a lot of different people. We want to make sure that the club owners, the owners that are around, like in the park areas, those people are involved. Well, you know, the last thing I'd want to do is put on any sort of event that would make someone not make as much money that day. So you want to get other people involved. You definitely want to. One of the things I love about Quincy is all the like manufacturing and industry, and this is kind of amazing structure of industry that we have. So I have an idea to get some different industries involved in
Nice.
very creative ways so that we can see some of the cool stuff that people do here. And I just want to showcase our community in the best way so that everybody can hang out together and have a good time and raise some money.
Which is the number
Yeah.
one goal, the
Yes.
fundraising. I love that you brought up the, real quick, I want to touch back on, you did say, like, in putting in the plan, a big concern with people is maintenance. So, like, the fact that the volunteer is seeing that and standing by it and, like, looking at that is, you know, I guess, good. Like, for me to, makes me feel a little more comfortable about the situation when you know you have that concern of maintenance and planning that, because when we heard the plan and stuff like that, I felt like the maintenance thing was lacking, and it's nerve-wracking because as a Quincyan, you know, I don't know, I'm just like the next person. I don't want my taxes raised for something else, and generally that's why our taxes get raised, is for the next thing. But I like commend you for doing the next thing in this way, you know, the fundraising way. I like that.
Fundraising is important on these kinds of projects for so many reasons. People talk about grants a lot. It's hard to understand, what does that mean? We know it's related to money, but what does it take to get a grant? Why do you get a grant versus somebody else?
You don't leave it in the drawer.
I mean, the drawer's not like usually the best place.
Yeah, it's
If
nice.
you have a digital file, sometimes that's helpful, but I was thinking about that, and everybody makes mistakes at different points in time in their life.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
have
sorry.
definitely made some myself.
Yep, we all have.
So, yeah, if that happens to me, I expect you guys to talk about it too. So that's all right.
And also, I think the other thing that people need to realize is that I think that a thing that will be the catalyst that will help spur the Riverfront project will be the Quincy Bay project. Because once that is done and once people see how that impacts, because a lot of people have it confused that it is the same thing, and it's not. But the Quincy Bay project, which is greenlit, which is happening, which is going to cost millions of dollars.
45 is the last
Yeah.
estimate I saw.
So we're getting that, and that's going to be a big thing, and it's going to make it so the marina, so the bay is actually usable again. And a lot of people are going to want to use it for hunting, fishing, just nature things in general. So again, I think the thing that the riverfront, that you guys and everybody in the riverfront just needs to look at is, okay, Quincy Bay project, when it gets done, and again, I'm not saying put the brakes on anything, but still, I think your catalyst is going to be when that gets done and people go, oh, wow, what's next? Then it's like, well, here's what's next. This goes hand in hand. I think that's a great way to push it.
I think things can happen in so many ways,
Sure.
right? I mean, that's a huge catalyst. If that doesn't get us more excited about doing something down there. But I think we've heard about that project for so long, people don't believe it's going to be real. The Corps, it's on their schedule. Like,
Yeah.
it's going. It's
Yeah.
a $45 million project.
500 people showed up at the
I know,
Oakley
that's
Lindsay
amazing.
Center
That's great.
for the open house they had on.
Yeah.
It was great.
So that's a real project. The other thing, you know, the common things that you hear, it floods all of the time. So we do a lot of flood information, a lot of flood survey, a lot of research went into this. There's a small area that does flood quite often, right? Part of the design, the last design part of the plan was that some of the park would be made, and we're talking about Clat Adams Park, and that was what the master plan was really focused on for the most part. Part would be made to be flooded, right? It's infrastructure that can have high water, can have other things, plants that can withstand flooding, things like that. So if the waters come up in certain areas, you have power washing, doing other things, but the infrastructure will be strong enough to withstand it.
Well, that's what they did with the fountain, because when they put I was on the park board when we put the new fountain in down there, and one of the things they did was they made it so the electronics and the switches and everything that control the water flow are, you can take them out. When the water's coming up, you can just unhook it and take it out, so that is not all messed up by the flood. So I think, when things are like that, and plus, if you're going to put in some sort of tiered seating or anything you would do there, you make it so it withstands the river. So all you got to do is hose it off, and you're good to go. So again, it can certainly be managed.
And that's important too, because the park district, just like every other business in the country, it's hard to staff these things. And so you have to think about that. If you're doing a good job as a designer, as a planner, you're thinking about that. Who do they have to maintain what you plant? Do the mowing and do the infrastructure work. So that's something that definitely went into the thought. And also, we're not the first person to look at doing a riverfront development. So the history of riverfront development has been going really strong since a lot of port industry changed in like the 70s and 80s. Then all of this infrastructure was kind of eroding, and people wanted to reclaim these great accesses to natural, kind of wonderment. So Mississippi River is something that people know about all around the world. It's really cool that we live right by it.
It is. We take it for granted.
All the time.
I think we take it for granted as it is now.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I'm down there all the time because that's where I walk my dog. I think it's beautiful. I think there are some parts of Clat Adams that are already questionable. I'm not trying to dog on, but if we can't maintain it as it is right now, do you remember the bush?
Yes.
Okay, the bush and the docking
boat ramp
thing.
bush.
Yeah, and then just the fountain itself. I see it every day. It's not the most maintained. I don't know. It's we're just biting off maybe a little bit more. But again, just my opinion. I'm so happy that you are passionate about it. I love that you're passionate about it. I know you're passionate about it because you love Quincy.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit why you love Quincy.
We were talking about this. Obviously, I didn't just show up here and go, guess what, guys? I love Quincy. I'll tell you all about it.
I tell you how much I love Quincy.
But Quincy is a really important place to me. It's been an important place to my family. I live here. My brother lives here. My niece and nephews and my sister-in-law. But both my parents were not native Quincyans.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Nope.
Neither one.
Legendary Quincyans, though.
They became, in their own right, quite strong characters. But my dad was from this town called LaSalle, Peru, Illinois, or he was from Peru, but LaSalle, Peru is the area.
Yep.
It's a high school he went to. And my mom was a Hannibalian. So
A Hannibalian.
Hannibalian is the Britannica pronunciation.
Yeah, my mom was a...
Sounds like a vegetable. Hannibalian.
A Hannibal girl, which always gave us great fodder to make fun of, Missouri when we went over the river.
Easy now. Settle down.
And then,
I love
my
this.
dad got made fun of when we went the other way. So it was a good family rivalries there. But they both came to Quincy. They're educators. My dad started off in coaching and teaching and then became a principal. And my mom was a teacher. And they met in Quincy at the bars in their 20s. My mom chased him. He chased my mom.
We can shout out the bar, though, right?
Well,
I know it wasn't that then, but what is it now?
I don't think that there was only one bar,
Okay.
but there
Multiple
definitely.
bars.
But there was a key one that
Would
Brittany
it
even
would have
said
been
about.
Whiskey Downs? Would have been the bar?
No.
It was. Oh my!
The scoreboard.
I know it was the
Oh
scoreboard.
wow. Okay,
I
that
was
makes
thinking
sense.
of-
Your dad's a coach.
Yeah.
Makes
He
sense.
was in my scoreboard story long
Yeah.
ago.
I remember that now. Okay.
So there was the famous story was he loved a lot of Tony Orlando. Dad had questionable taste in music, but a lot of polka.
What's wrong with Tony Orlando?
So there was that knock whatever times.
Knock 3 times on
Yeah.
the ceiling if you want me. Twice on the pipes
Yeah.
if you.
I
If
just know
the
that from
answer is
Now and
no.
That is
From what?
From Now and Then, the movie Now and Then.
yeah.
Haven't seen
Not
it.
3 times. Whatever. You got to look
It's
up
a
the scene.
cue. It's
Yeah.
a girl's coming of age. It's the girls Stand By Me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I get it now.
But no, Dad would go in there. He was not a little man. He wore coaching shorts.
Oh yeah.
Those 70s coaching shorts.
Oh yeah.
Like the short.
Wore them
Oh,
in
yeah.
the 80s. Oh yeah, I wore. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Long socks, like
Knee socks.
the youth are doing these days.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah,
Like,
it's coming back.
Cover it with calves. Yep.
He had the stripes at the top. So he wore coaching shorts. He wore them pretty much the rest of his life. I don't think the spandex was meant to work that hard, but he wore them for a very long time. And then he wore like freebie clothes that a lot of people gave him, but he coached football, wrestling for a really long time. Football, he was not great. It was not a great time for Quincy football. It's a phenomenal time now.
Yeah.
And wrestling, he loved it. One season he taught girls golf. This is all at Quincy Senior High. Taught girls golf because there was no coach. He is a horrible golfer, but he decided to step up and coach that year.
Good.
But so he was an educator and principal. My mom was a teacher. They met. I didn't ever know their wedding story. I learned this after, this is kind of part of it. Both my parents ended up passing away when I was pretty young. I was 21 when my mom passed away and 22 when my dad passed away. And they were, like we were talking about, these kind of larger-than-life figures, really passionate people about community, students, making sure kids were seen, loved, supported, all of that kind of stuff. And so that's the kind of house I grew up in. But then I also grew up where they were sick, and they were kind of sick off and on from the time that I was 13 until they passed away. And it wasn't just sort of constant, but one would be sick and then the other one would get, and so, hospitals were not totally out of the line. Yeah, we saw a lot, experienced a lot. It brought us really close together as a family, but it was a difficult thing to experience when you're that young.
Sure.
And Quincy, I was like so many other kids, I just wanted to get the heck out of Quincy. Like, if I could get out of Quincy, all my problems would be solved, right? Quincy, Illinois is the bane of my existence as a whatever teen. And I left for like a year and a half of college. My mom got very sick before I went, 3 weeks before I went to college. She lost her ability to walk and was sent in by ambulance to Springfield Hospital. And I went with her in the ambulance at that time. I don't remember where everybody else was. And when I finally went to school at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, I packed up a lot of stuff in black trash bags. I don't know why.
Because that's what you do in college.
Yeah, right? And Dad drove me to Chicago in his huge royal blue caddy that said QHS-1 on the license plate.
I remember it.
And we had nothing to talk about because life was a little scary at the time. So my dad, in all of his wisdom, talked to me about the proper way to cut and smoke a cigar for probably 3 hours. And I will never forget that.
And you'll probably never use that?
No, haven't used it yet. But
There was something that your mom told you that you told me on your bachelorette party. We went to Chicago. We took the train. It was the safe route. But anyway, in her bachelorette party, she was toasting all her girlfriends, and she gave a piece of advice that her mom said, and if you could say it, I'll try not to cry, but it's so true.
Well, her delivery is very funny, but she was trying to pack in as much life advice as she possibly could before she passed. And one of the things she's told me is that it is so important to have really good girlfriends in your life, because not everything that happens is something that you have to discuss with your husband, and definitely not ad nauseum, right? Sometimes if you want to belabor something, you go to your girlfriends. And she did tell me, I thought my parents had like just storybook love, right? Of course, they're your parents. She goes, Stephanie, there were times I hated everything your father said and did for months at a time. And she goes, that's just what marriage is. And you choose to get to know this one person more than you'll know anyone else in your life. But she goes, you got to have your good girlfriends. It's so important. And I feel very lucky that I got that advice. I took it to heart, definitely.
Where'd your mom and dad get married?
They got married at Vermont Street Methodist Church.
Which is where she got married.
Oh, okay, cool.
It was very cool to be able to, I have photos, their photos, so to be in that same space. So before we were talking about, I wanted to get out of Quincy. But when I went to college, I was coming back. I was in Springfield a lot that first year. And then my mom finally got out of the hospital. And in her infinite Susanness, she was terminal with cancer. She had it literally all over her body. And she taught herself to walk again. Wow. And she did great Tina Turner impersonations with her wig on, singing Rollin'. And I moved back to Quincy after she passed because my dad wasn't doing very well. And, you know, she didn't ever want me to be in Quincy. To her, if I lived away, then her illness didn't affect my life.
Yeah.
So I would try to stay away, but then it was really hard
Right.
because I would want to come home every weekend. And we were very close friends, so she would call me sometimes late at night, and I just didn't want her to be alone. So I did take time off of school. Then I came to Quincy, and Quincy was everything I didn't think it was when I was a kid. So many people supported me, so many of their friends, so many of my friends, people that I don't even see that much or didn't expect me to do much for them, did so much for me and my family at that time. And I think that this place deserves a lot of love, and its people deserve a lot of love. And I want to do good things here if I can.
Sure.
And I just want to support people as much as I can too.
I think that is beautiful.
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I mean, that's why you do everything that you do. One of the things that we discuss, I don't really want to bring this up, but it's so like what you said with the kids wanting to move away. I know your situation was much different, like where your parents were sick, and you said you kind of did that is a reason to prove to yourself that you could survive without them. I think that some kids do that, you know, regardless of the health situation, because
yeah.
it is so scary to think, you know, life without your mom and dad.
Yeah.
And
Especially if you have a good relationship.
yes,
you know?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've been through so much. You've come out so strong, and out of it all, like, you're doing exactly what they asked you to do by giving back. And I'm so proud to be your friend. Honestly, you're giving back, and I see like why. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it came from them. We were talking about, I didn't just do like, so I went to school in Chicago, and when I first went there, it was like painting, right?
Right.
Because it's art school. And I was like,
Which, by the way, I wore my
No, I
most
love
artsy, my most
You wore a
artsy.
smock.
Like, that's
yeah,
like the least
I
artsy
did.
thing.
Well, I was trying to. She's my artist friend, so.
So I went in for painting. I actually got to work in our foundry. I got to weld. I could TIG weld aluminum at one point in time. Never could do that now. But so I got to weld. I worked in the wood shop. I got to learn all of these things, materials. And then I came home, and my parents passed. And then I went back to school. What was so wild is that I went back. Then my grandmother, Koscielski, who was 95, ended up passing away right when I was supposed to go back to college. So I had to nurse her to the end, then go back up to school. But they were like, hey, we don't really, like, you really lost 3 family members and then you want to come back? Like, your grades were bad. Isn't that just what was happening? And I go, so they made me bring all 3 death certificates with me. And I had
Nice,
to explain,
yeah.
like,
Wow.
no, everybody's really dead.
Yeah.
Can I just finish my degree? Because your credits don't transfer very well to other places.
Yeah.
So I went in, and then I started taking architecture courses and design courses. And I got to learn so many things. I had professors from these top schools all around the country and top firms, and I got so into design and like the practical side of it, and then the kind of theoretical side of it. Loved it. And then I had this teacher, and she was from, her name was Miss Love, and she was famously from Robert Stern, who designed like lots of Harvard's classic campus and this East Coast, very buttoned up, but technically brilliant architect. She worked at his offices in New York. She hated me.
Oh.
Hated everything about me. I have sleep paralysis. I was on some sort of like whatever medicine. I would come into class late because it's a 8-hour class, and I'd be like,
Oh.
I'm sorry, but I was sleeping a lot. I had this dream about my parents. I really wanted to talk to them. I got in class. I would get my work done.
Mm-hmm.
She did not like that I was not as buttoned up.
Yeah.
So she told me that if I stayed in the program, she would make my life a living hell. So I said, I just went through one.
Bring it on.
No, I did the opposite.
Oh.
I said, I just went through one. I'm just going to paint until I get my credits and then get out of here. And then after that, I ended up moving to New York because it was hard to find a job in Chicago at that time. All my friends had moved out to New York. I visited once, 3 weeks later, I lived there, and I lived in the worst neighborhood possible in Brooklyn at the time. I did not know that.
Ooh.
Because when I went there for like a week, I visited, and it was really pretty brownstone. And then I went back, and that brownstone was really far from the subway in either direction. And I got new nicknames, and it was a different experience. It was fun, though. The community was amazing. And so I would just like started doing weird, wild things, but I got into architecture and design out there.
Okay.
So one of my first jobs, it was like a bridge designer. His name, Tom Pirotowski, passed away recently, but he hired me because his daughter couldn't get into the school that I went to, and he really liked it, and I was Polish.
I was going to say, the Polish thing had to be a part of it.
So everybody told me that my school wouldn't matter, and, the Polish name got made fun of a lot here in Quincy, and both of those are why I got employed in New York City.
There you go.
So zing.
So there you go. Proud to be Polish, as a family bumper sticker once said. And so I got this job, and then I started working with all these different people. I worked with huge construction firms. I used to go to the Yale Club for lunches with all of the heads of construction companies in New York, every Italian man who had just gotten back from Florida to start summer construction schedule in New York, ate the same dried chicken every month and said, "Hi, I'm Stephanie Koscielski," and so I just went on all of these adventures while I was out there, but I got to do cool things. The last firm, I worked for one firm that did high-end residential construction. They did a Ron Howard's apartment. They did a Rockefeller apartment. You're just around all of this stuff all of the time. And then the last place I worked at was it was all an amazing education, but the last place made me who I am as far as a professional today. It was a firm that got their start doing Apple's headquarters. So that was their kind of first major projects.
Okay.
So they had offices in San Francisco, New York, Washington, Paris, maybe somewhere else, I can't remember. Anyway, they had offices doing only really cool things. So
Well, it's Apple, so.
yeah. So clients that we would have were Bloomberg was a big one, all of his major towers in New York, Sony, Time Inc., Nickelodeon, and all of those things. Viacom was big. Then you got to work with the different developers. So these people that you only heard of and quit, the Durst, the political, the Kushners, there was all I got to kind of see what all of these people were like as business people because I worked directly with the leadership. So I would help work on pitch presentations all the time and design ideas. And then I have one boss that I love to call Cranky Boss. Because he was not nice.
That's what I love to call Bob. I'm kidding. I just thought I'd add that one. Sorry.
You beat me to it because I figured that's what I was going to say. So.
Set up.
Nice job.
So
Friends ganging up on me.
Yeah. So that was the big job, and then what led you back to Quincy?
So I was working there, and it was grueling. One Christmas, I was here visiting my family. I had my laptop, and one of our bosses promised Sony that I would get them a presentation on Christmas Day.
Oh.
So I worked on Christmas Day, and I watched all of these guys, my bosses, who were phenomenally brilliant, talented people, working all day, taking people out to dinner all night, traveling all the time, and then maybe they could go to their house upstate New York for 2 weeks where they're on the computer the entire time.
Yeah.
What are you working for?
Yeah.
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 You're working so you
Yeah.
can have some time off,
Yeah, but if you're not getting time off, or wouldn't you just work and work and work? Sometimes you think, what are you working for?
Yeah.
I know that you made a visit back to Quincy, and my husband, who is originally the good friends with her, that's how I met her, is through my husband.
Okay.
Mentioned to her, I think it was maybe at the Abbey, I don't know, about moving back here, and I think the rest is history. We saw something, speaking of history, just tying it in real quick. So he convinced her to move back here. She convinced Ryan Tanner to buy the patio. So if we didn't,
I've read that. I saw it on social media, yeah.
It's interesting how, I don't know.
I
Coming back, obviously, coming back here, you brought more than just the convincing of the patio. You were bringing everything.
I think, I brought all the things that I love and I'm passionate about with me, but then, you have to do kind of like a little bit of, I don't know, decompressing time. You have to do a little like deprogramming. You got to do these like, I was so angry in New York. This is one of my favorite stories, but also it was time to go. I love New York. People here sometimes do not understand that New York has everybody. You're like, I don't want to live there. It's all this people. No, there are 8 million people in that city. Everything you are into is in that city. It is a wild, wild place. It was very fun to live. But people are kind of aggressive.
Sure.
I had to become very, very aggressive in work. And one time the cranky boss, I sent him an email. Maybe 2 short paragraphs, right? You could not put extra words in out there. He wrote TLTR. Sent it back.
Talk to you later.
Too long to read.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I'm going to start doing that one to you. I'm just kidding. God. I'm on a roll today.
Like, one of my first presentations was like our huge CEO, and I had to do, Bette Midler was his good friend, although he was also very right-wing, so I don't know how that worked out. But anyway, because she threw this big Halloween bash, and he would go.
Because that was back when people could actually talk.
Yeah, that's probably true.
That was it.
Sometimes he used us as like labor to design these very elaborate costumes that he would then wear to Bette Midler's Halloween party. Anyway, they were very hard. If you did not take every note, if you asked them a question about what they had just said, you were done. So you had to be severely good. But my thing where I realized I needed to leave, I'm on the subway, and I go from Brooklyn to 14th Street and then down to Broadway. I worked in Soho, right on Broadway, a very big tourist area. I'm in the train, and there's a tourist standing in the middle where we're commuting in the morning, and it is packed with people. There's no breathing room, and the tourist is just standing in front of the doors, and it's packed. So I reach over at my 5'2" self and push the guy's shoulder. I just nudge him. I'm like, kind of a shove, kind of a push, kind of a nudge, and he turns around and he goes, "You are so rude." And I go, "Get out of the way." And then everybody in the train was like, "Yeah, get out of the way." And so I realized, like, maybe when I came back to Quincy, I couldn't shove people in high
You had to
heels.
take away the New York. You had to get the New York out of you.
I'm trying to get to the lettuce. Get out of my way.
There's like a very famous 4-letter word there that's a 4-letter word everywhere. And it's like the out there. So when I came back to Quincy, one of my sweet, sweet coworkers, an amazing woman who does everything. She's in Mike's band. She's a mother of 4. She works all the time. Gave me a mug with an orange fox on it that said, "For Fox's sake." And she said,
start
"Here."
using this one.
She said, "Here, so you don't have to swear so much anymore."
We got one of those here.
Yeah, well.
She's not here right now.
Oh, Ashley.
Wait,
Yes.
what?
Not you.
Oh, yeah, I'm actually really good at
Compared to
not
Ashley?
swearing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Ashley's our
on
champ.
the microphone.
Ashley's
though.
our champ.
I remember.
Yeah, but that's okay. So how long have you worked at Klingner's then?
So right now it is 7 years, almost longer. So yeah, 7 years. Yeah, we didn't say that earlier. I work at Klingner. Klingner's been amazing to me.
You've been amazing to them too, though.
Yeah, it's a mutual relationship. But
Does Ryan Hincamper fix your computer and it doesn't work?
I usually talk to Beth, but like if Beth's not
Dist or Ryan. That's awesome.
Ryan is very great. Good storyteller too. This is not work related. Great singer, and also sometimes on Friday, if it's after 3:30, there's a lot of good jams coming from his office. I'm just gonna say.
Sinatra?
No,
He's a metal guy.
Yeah.
Oh, anytime
Tool's his favorite band,
I
I
haven't
think.
had Tool. Sometimes I get weird flashbacks with Tool, so I would have
He's
known.
a Tool.
but-
Tool, he loves Tool.
Now
more
he's gonna probably start
power.
playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll watch this and go, "Oh, I'm gonna crank some Tool."
More power to you for all of it, though. Seriously. Everything. Not just having to work with Ryan Hincamper. I'm kidding. But everything. More power to you for coming on here at this table, facing what I didn't really have much to, but like, because I'm very supportive of you, obviously, because you're my friend. More power to you for the volunteering with this fundraiser. And the biggest more power to you is being a survivor of, a pretty tragic event and events. And then more power to you for being one of the best contributors to Quincy.
I think there's a lot of people in Quincy that make it an incredibly special place, and it's one of the reasons why I knew I could come back here. I mean, how many times have I came back to Quincy for a soft space to land when my parents were really sick, and then I came back to Quincy after New York, which I do really love it. Made me into a very cranky woman, and I came back here to kind of deprogram some of that out of me, and it's given me so much. And so I work with clients quite a bit. I also help on sort of pitch sides and doing research and getting our teams and our staff kind of involved in some of the research elements of projects. I work on a lot of graphic reports and things like that, but I've found a group of pretty good kindred spirits that really love what they do and are really passionate about it. And one of the things I think is always interesting, it's not just Klingner, but almost every business. You usually hear about something that a company is doing, usually sometimes at their best times, sometimes at their worst times, and then all of the stuff in between we don't hear about for any of us, and even us as people, right? Yeah. You always hear about somebody's worst, especially in a small town. I always say your life and story in Quincy is way more fascinating than it is in reality, but
true, very true.
But there's just so many good things that people are doing, and especially by working in communities that are smaller, you can't make huge mistakes all the time, or you're not in business.
Right.
And so Klingner has been around for, it's going to be 120 years next year, which is crazy. Yeah. There's 8 offices in 3 states right now, 140 employees. We've designed almost every major, like a lot of the major ports on the Missouri River, the largest pump station on the upper Mississippi. We won a pump station project not that long ago in the St. Louis area, and we had to put in this huge quals package, right? Like say all of this information, who we are and why we're qualified. And we were going up national, I think some international engineering firms, and there we are. And we got to the final round, and the people on the kind of voting just go, wait, who are these people again? And so we had to finally just send them a list of all the things that we had told them previously. Like, we've done all of this stuff. And they go, oh, wow. And we got the job.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So there's a lot of cool things that are happening here. But I think that if we really look, and I think Quincy's a great example of that, if we look at other people, kind of the gray areas, right? Not the black and white, but if we look in between, like you were saying, how much more do we have in common than we don't have in common?
Right.
And how much more fun is it that we don't all get along?
Yeah.
Like every futuristic movie is where everybody's like a cyborg and has no personality. I would much rather, I'd rather life be
have a
interesting.
debate.
Yeah.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to disagreements, friendships.
Yes.
Quincy.
I got one drink left.
You got one drink left.
Oh, I gotta chug this.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie, for being here.
Thank you guys for letting me come on.
In the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this mode, like I don't even know where I am.